Donald thinks that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. I think it's real.
Just last week, torrential rains in New Orleans, a triple-digit heat wave in the Northwest, and tidal flooding in Miami Beach.
It's really pretty dangerous outside, to be honest with you. Nobody should be out. Nobody.
Dozens of people are reported dead now, hundreds of people still trapped in that rubble. The quake hit just before 1 p.m. Tuesday local time, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and was centered just a few miles from Christchurch.
President Trump revealing his decision to the country, to the world. We're out, he says, pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord.
The facts are crystal clear. Climate change is real.
Approximately 31% of white Americans don't believe in global warming. By contrast, just 11% of Hispanics and 17% of Black claim there is no solid evidence that the Earth is warming.
The Arctic Ocean is expected to become essentially ice-free in summer before mid-century. In fact, experts believe that the Arctic sea ice is melting at a shocking rate, 9% per decade.
In April 2017, it was revealed that 2/3 of Australia's Great Barrier Reef has been severely damaged by coral bleaching.
August 2014 was the warmest August ever recorded globally.
The intensity, frequency, and duration of North Atlantic hurricanes, as well as the frequency of the strongest hurricanes, Category 4 and 5, have all increased since the early 1980s.
Arctic sea coverage has shrunk every decade since 1979 by 3.5 to 4.1%.
16 out of 17 of the warmest years ever recorded have occurred since 2001.
The UNHCR has warned that climate change could cause the displacement of 250 million people across the world by 2050.
27% of Americans thinks global warming is a hoax.
More than 1 million species have become extinct due to disappearing habitats, disappearing ecosystems, acidic oceans, all caused by global warming.
More than 1 million species face potential extinction as a result of disappearing habitats.
According to the WWF, global warming could kill off polar bears in the next 20 years.
Is the ozone hole causing climate change?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
The ozone hole is a man-made hole in the ozone layer above the South Pole. The ozone layer shields us from harmful UV rays that come from the sun. Unfortunately, we form the hole in the ozone layer through the use of gases present in spray cans, by example. While some of the sun UV rays slip through the hole, they represent less than 1% of the sun's energy. So these UV rays cannot explain the global warming of the planet.
Amongst the following choices, which one do you think climate change has an impact on? Forests, oceans, water, and polar region?
Oceans and polar regions.
Oceans. Polar regions and water.
Polar regions.
Water and polar region.
Well, the answer to that question is all the choices. Indeed, climate change has a very big environmental impact and affects pretty much everything. First, the forests have an extremely important role as they soak up carbon dioxide. However, the tree line of the subarctic boreal forests are gradually retreating north as the temperature rises. And in the tropical forests, a small change of climate can cause a high level of extinction. The oceans also soaks up a lot of carbon dioxide, preventing it from leaving the atmosphere. Yet, an increase in carbon dioxide concentration makes ocean more acidic and leave coral reef and other species at huge risk. What do you think are the top 3 main causes for climate change?
Cars, pollution, and animals.
Pollution, deforestation, and cars.
The sun, cows, and agriculture.
The factories, the pollution, and driving the cars.
Cows, cars, and deforestation.
The first cause for global warming are the carbon dioxide emissions that come from fossil fuel burning power plants. Coal burning power plants release very large amounts of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. In fact, the production of electricity contributes over 40% of the USA's CO2 emissions. The second cause are the carbon dioxide emissions that come from transportation. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the transportation of people and goods consists about 33% of the CO2 emissions in the United States of America. Our fossil fuel emissions have increased ever since the demand in cars has gone up. The final cause for global warming are the methane emissions that come from the agricultural sector and the Arctic seabeds. Methane, also known as CH4, is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2 is. Farming consists 40% of the methane emissions and 20% of the carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere. As the planet continues to heat up, the Arctic seabeds are melting, thus causing the methane trapped under them to escape and to go up into the Earth's atmosphere.
Hi, I am Clémence Sauriol in company of Al Gore to talk about his TED Talk named The Case for Optimism on Climate Change. Some people may think that climate change is a hoax. What would you say to those people?
Climate change is definitely not a hoax. There is a lot of environmental disasters that are happening in the world to prove that.
You said that the global temperature is dangerously rising. What is the effect of this on the world?
Yes, the amplitude of the storms has greatly increased. Just take the super typhoon Haiyan. It was 5 degrees Fahrenheit higher than the average, and it was the most powerful storm ever. It destructed the Philippines and cost them $4.55 billion.
There was also the storm Sandy that crashed on New York City and San Francisco. That shows us that everybody is at risk and should be concerned about it. Does climate change affect only part of the society, or is it a crisis that affects everyone?
No, on the contrary, it affects everybody. One of the big consequences of climate change is the spreading of pandemic disease. A pandemic disease is a type of disease that are prevalent throughout an entire country, continent, or the whole world. A good example of this disease would be the Zika virus. Indeed, the global temperatures are rising, which creates a livable climate for the disease in areas that wouldn't have been affected otherwise.
You also said in your TED Talk that 50% of the living species would disappear before the end of the century. That is a shocking fact. So it leads to my next question. Are we capable of changing?
Yes, many agreements have been reached between countries to reduce their ecological impact, like the Paris Agreement. In addition, the investments in renewable energy has greatly increased at the expense of the fossil energy.
Thank you for discussing with us today. We hope that your message will have an impact on our viewers.
Thank you.